The true power of listening and silence. Have you ever noticed how much of life's challenges come from misunderstandings or arguments that arise simply because we rush to speak rather than truly listen? Think about it for a moment. How often do we jump to conclusions without pausing to understand others first? Everyone faces difficulties and disagreements, but not everyone understands the incredible power hidden in listening and silence. Listening isn't just hearing words. It's about genuinely understanding another person's feelings, their needs, and their perspective. Silence is not weakness, it is strength. It is the pause that gives us clarity, the moment that helps us find wisdom in chaos. So why is listening so important? Many problems arise simply because we react too quickly. We hear words, but we don't truly listen. Our minds rush to respond, defend, or prove ourselves right. And in doing so, we lose the chance to truly understand. Imagine how many conflicts could be resolved, how many relationships strengthened, and how much more peaceful life could be if we learned the art of genuine listening. When you truly listen, you not only understand the situation better, but you also build stronger connections. You reduce conflicts. You grow in empathy. And you show respect to those around you. Listening creates trust, builds bridges, and allows you to learn things you never would have known otherwise. To illustrate this powerful truth, let me share a story about the Buddha and two of his disciples. These disciples were arguing passionately, each convinced he was right and the other was wrong. They brought their argument to the Buddha, expecting him to take sides, but his reaction surprised them, offering a deep lesson about the profound strength found in silence. This story will teach us that the loudest voice isn't always the right one. Sometimes, silence and listening hold more power than thousands of words ever could. Let's learn how the strength of quiet listening can transform our lives. Certainly, here is your powerful, inspiring content in clear, engaging American English, free from any special characters and designed specifically to motivate, uplift, and educate your YouTube audience. Part Roman to the story of the Buddha and two arguing disciples. One day, two of Buddha's disciples found themselves in a fierce argument. Both were utterly convinced they were right. Each refused to listen to the other, each determined to prove his point. Voices were raised, tempers flared, and soon the simple disagreement escalated into a heated confrontation. Each disciple felt justified, believing passionately that their viewpoint was correct. Neither wanted to step back or yield to the other's perspective. Frustrated and angry, both disciples decided they needed a higher authority to settle their dispute. Determined to prove themselves right, they hurriedly sought the Buddha. Their minds were racing, eager for validation, each one confident the Buddha would clearly see their truth. They believed that once they presented their arguments, the Buddha would acknowledge the righteousness of their position and condemn the other as wrong. Upon reaching the Buddha, they rushed to speak, each disciple presenting their argument passionately and emotionally. In their urgency and agitation, they constantly interrupted each other, trying to drown out the opposing voice. But throughout their furious debate, the Buddha remained perfectly silent. He did not take sides. He did not speak. He simply sat quietly, his presence calm and peaceful, radiating compassion without uttering a single word. At first, his silence puzzled and even annoyed the disciples. They expected judgment. They expected validation. But instead, they received nothing but silence. As the silence lingered, something remarkable began to happen. Without the Buddha saying a single word, the disciples gradually began to calm down. The anger that had consumed them started to fade away. Slowly, they stopped interrupting each other and began listening not just to their own arguments, but to the silence and wisdom radiating from the Buddha's serene presence. Finally, both disciples became quiet, their hearts open and their minds clear. They looked at each other, realizing their mistake. They understood that in their rush to be right, they had forgotten the most important lesson: respect, patience, and openness to learning from one another. At that moment, the Buddha smiled gently. He looked at his disciples with compassion and spoke softly but firmly. He said, "The truth never needs to be loudly defended. Silence can often speak louder than any words. Real wisdom is not shown through anger or stubbornness, but through patience, understanding, and the willingness to truly listen." In that moment, both disciples felt deeply humbled. They understood that their desire to be right had clouded their judgment. They realized that in their struggle to defend their own beliefs, they had forgotten something more important: understanding, compassion, and respect for each other. The Buddha's silence had taught them an invaluable lesson. It taught them that truth and wisdom do not demand shouting or arguing. True strength is calm. True wisdom is quiet and compassionate. And when we embrace silence, we open ourselves to deeper understanding, compassion, and connection with others. The story of the Buddha and his two disciples reminds us all that arguing and raising our voices rarely solves anything. Instead, real solutions come from a quiet mind and an open heart. When we choose to pause, to listen without judgment, and to speak calmly, we become stronger, wiser, and more compassionate people. This powerful lesson teaches us that flexibility, patience, and silence are not weaknesses, they are signs of real strength. Just as the Buddha used silence to guide his disciples toward insight, we too can learn to harness the strength found in calmness and patience. So, The next time you find yourself facing a conflict, remember this story. Instead of immediately defending yourself, take a moment to breathe. Instead of speaking louder, choose to listen deeper. Embrace silence, because in that silence you will find the clarity, wisdom, and strength you need to overcome any challenge. Because true strength does not shout, it whispers gently, powerfully, through the quiet wisdom of listening. Why silence and listening hold more power than words. In our noisy world, everyone wants to speak. Everyone wants to be heard. And everyone wants their opinion valued. But have you ever considered the extraordinary power of silence and genuine listening? Silence and listening aren't signs of weakness, they are symbols of emotional mastery, deep wisdom, and true inner strength. Imagine a moment when you're angry, frustrated, or upset. What usually happens? We tend to speak impulsively, letting emotions take control. Words spoken in anger are rarely thoughtful or productive. Instead, they create pain, misunderstanding, and broken relationships. But when we practice silence, when we take a breath, pause, and hold back our immediate reactions, we gain something incredibly valuable: control over our emotions. Silence gives us space. It gives us clarity. It allows us to regain composure, turning reactive impulses into thoughtful responses. In moments of conflict or frustration, silence helps us step back from intense feelings and see things clearly. It helps us avoid saying things we might later regret. Imagine how different life would be if, instead of immediately reacting, we simply paused, took a deep breath, and listened first. Imagine how many arguments, how many misunderstandings could be prevented by embracing silence, even just for a brief moment. Next, consider the incredible power of listening. True listening isn't just hearing the words someone says, it's about genuinely trying to understand what they mean, what they feel, and what they're experiencing. Most disagreements, misunderstandings, and conflicts happen because we simply don't listen deeply enough. We often listen just to reply, ready to defend our perspective or prove ourselves right. But when we truly listen, with openness and sincerity, we gain deeper insight into others' hearts and minds. We discover the hidden truths behind their words. We build connections instead of walls, trust instead of suspicion, and cooperation instead of division. Listening with sincerity doesn't mean you must agree with everything you hear. It means you approach conversations with empathy, openness, and patience. It means you're willing to see things from another person's point of view, even if it differs from yours. By listening, you create bridges of understanding. You find solutions that shouting and arguing never could. Finally, silence itself is an undeniable sign of wisdom and maturity. People who possess true intelligence don't need to raise their voices or prove their worth through endless arguments. They understand the value and strength contained in quiet confidence. Wise people choose their words carefully, understanding that sometimes the most powerful statements are the ones they never speak. Think about the people you respect most. Are they usually the loudest in the room? Or are they those who speak less but whose words carry meaning and depth? The most intelligent, mature individuals know when to stay quiet, when to listen, and when words aren't even necessary. Their silence commands respect and demonstrates deep inner confidence and wisdom. Silence, therefore, isn't empty, it is filled with insight. It is filled with clarity, power, and wisdom. When you embrace silence, you show emotional maturity. You demonstrate inner strength. You convey confidence without needing validation through volume or force. Listening and silence transform the way we interact with others and ourselves. They teach us patience, humility, and understanding. They remind us that we don't always need to win every argument, prove every point, or always have the last word. Instead, they help us realize that true wisdom comes from knowing when not to speak, when to step back, and how to listen deeply. Imagine what your life would look like if you began practicing genuine listening today. How much stronger would your relationships become? How much deeper would your understanding grow? How much more peaceful would your interactions feel? When you choose silence over immediate reaction, you choose strength. When you choose listening over speaking, you choose understanding over misunderstanding. You choose peace over conflict. You choose growth over stubbornness. So, the next time you feel angry, frustrated, or ready to argue, remember the quiet strength found in silence. Remember the deep wisdom found in genuine listening. Because real strength isn't in speaking louder, it's in knowing when not to speak. It's in being wise enough to listen first. Choose silence. Choose listening. Choose wisdom. This choice won't just improve your relationships, it will transform your entire life. Learning to truly listen and use silence effectively is one of the most empowering skills you can ever develop. Many people mistakenly believe that power comes from speaking first, loudest, or most convincingly. But the real power lies in your ability to hold back, to pause, and to respond thoughtfully. Here are 3 powerful ways you can strengthen your listening skills and master the transformative strength of silence. First, learn to control your immediate reactions. We've all been in situations where someone says something upsetting, and instantly our emotions surge, tempting us to react harshly. But what happens when you pause? Take a deep breath and hold your response just for a moment. Suddenly, you regain control over your emotions. Your mind becomes clearer, calmer, and more focused. You make smarter, wiser decisions when you respond thoughtfully rather than impulsively. Practicing this kind of restraint doesn't make you weak, it makes you wise and strong. Next time someone's words trigger your anger or frustration, remember to breathe deeply, pause, and choose silence first. You will be amazed at how quickly tension dissolves and clarity appears. Second, shift your focus from responding quickly to genuinely understanding the other person. Most people don't truly listen, they're simply waiting for their turn to speak, either to defend their point of view. But real listening requires empathy, patience, and genuine openness. Don't listen just to reply, defend, or prove yourself right. Instead, listen deeply to understand how the other person truly feels and what they genuinely think. By doing this, you build stronger relationships, create greater trust, and discover solutions you might never have found otherwise. Remember, true listening is not passive, it's incredibly active, compassionate, and transformative. When you master this art, you not only strengthen your relationships but also enrich your own perspective and wisdom. Finally, practice intentional silence. Silence is not emptiness or weakness. It is a powerful tool for self-awareness, clarity, and spiritual growth. Set aside time regularly to simply sit quietly and reflect. Let your thoughts settle and your mind clear. This intentional silence gives you space to deeply understand yourself and the world around you. It strengthens your emotional control, sharpens your intuition, and enhances your mental clarity. When you regularly practice silence, you build a strong foundation of inner calm and resilience. This intentional silence becomes your anchor, giving you power and stability in times of challenge and uncertainty. Embracing silence doesn't mean giving up your voice, rather, it means using your voice more wisely, more thoughtfully, and more powerfully. When you speak from a place of silence and clarity, your words carry greater meaning, authority, and impact. So today, I encourage you to commit to these practices. Learn to control your immediate reactions. Listen deeply to truly understand, not just respond, and embrace intentional silence as a source of strength. By doing this, you'll become more powerful, confident, and effective in every area of your life. Remember, true strength and wisdom don't always shout. Sometimes, the greatest power is found in your ability to quietly listen and thoughtfully respond. Life is not always easy, it will challenge you in ways you might never expect. But how you respond to these challenges defines who you become. Real strength does not come from speaking the loudest or arguing passionately until everyone agrees with you. True strength comes from your ability to listen deeply, to stay silent when needed, and to truly understand others. Today we learned an invaluable lesson from the story of the Buddha and his two arguing disciples. They discovered that true wisdom is not about proving you are right, but about being calm enough to hear and understand others. Silence can be incredibly powerful, more powerful than shouting, arguing, or forcing your opinion. When you practice genuine listening, you become more insightful, more compassionate, and far better equipped to handle life's toughest situations. The next time you find yourself in a challenging situation or an intense disagreement, pause for just a moment. Remember the wisdom of the Buddha. Instead of immediately reacting, take a deep breath. Listen with your whole heart, not simply to respond, but to truly understand. Choose silence over impulsive words. By doing this, you gain clarity, you gain perspective, and you become a stronger, wiser person. Imagine if everyone practiced the power of listening and thoughtful silence. Relationships would deepen, conflicts would fade, and understanding would grow. So let this message inspire you. Make listening a powerful habit in your life. Choose thoughtful silence and compassionate understanding every chance you get. Remember, strength is not found in loud voices or stubborn arguments. Real strength comes from genuine listening and wise silence. This is how you become truly powerful, deeply respected, and profoundly wise. Let your actions reflect your inner strength, and watch your life and relationships transform in amazing ways.